This is the Q Acoustics SUB100. It's a 10-inch steel box sub. It's the middle child of a trio of new subwoofers from Q Acoustics. Above it is the 12-inch SUB120, and below it is the 8-inch SUB80. The SUB100 retails for $1049 US. Alongside this is the amazing 5010 bookshelf speaker. It's a small two-way bookshelf speaker, and it's a proper bookshelf speaker. Proper in that it's sized to fit in a bookshelf. The 5010 retails for $749 for the pair. Along with this is the 5090 CI center channel. This is a compact ported box, and it retails for $599 US. It's no secret that I love Q Acoustics speakers. They make amazing products. I also happen to love white speakers, as you can tell just behind me there. And because Q Acoustics loves me, they went ahead and sent me the white versions of all of these speakers. They're also available in Santos Rosewood, Holm Oak, and Satin Black. On the speaker front, the front baffle is cool. It's a shiny black acrylic with a matte texture surrounding the drivers. It really complements the drivers and the speaker housing. It's an elegant looking speaker too, sturdy, inert, and substantial. It feels like quality when you pick up any of these speakers. The grills are black, but the subwoofer grill is gray. And I have to imagine that there was a reason for this, though I can't imagine what it is because even just from my own rudimentary searching online, it looks as though all of the speakers within their lineups feature black grills. So are they going to introduce gray grills for some of these speakers in the future? I don't know. But gray grills it is, and it doesn't quite match. The speakers feature the new C-Cube continuous curve cone design for the mid-bass drivers, which is said to deliver a smoother high-frequency integration with the tweeter and superior bass dynamics. The high-frequency driver takes a bit of design thinking from the upper-tier concept series. It's fully hermetically sealed and mechanically isolated from the front baffle to protect it from internal cabinet pressure and resonances from the mid-bass driver. The SUB100 has a similar aesthetic. It too is a rounded box. It's not overly large. It's simple and understated. Q Acoustics supplies spiked feet to decouple the sub from your floor and also rubber covers to cover up said spikes to protect your floors. Though I do find, just personally, that the rubber covers do fall off if you are to pick up and move your subwoofer from place to place. Though I feel like this is only something people like me do because I have to keep picking up gear and moving it around. If you were to leave it in one place, I think you'd be fine. And now, here are the laundry list of specifications for all of these products, starting off with the 5010s. They come fitted with a 4.5-inch version of that C-cubed mid-bass driver. The high frequencies are handled by a 1-inch tweeter. Frequency response is 56 Hz to 30 kHz. Nominal impedance is 6 ohms with a minimum of 3.3. Sensitivity is 86.3 decibels. Recommended amplifier power is 15 to 90 watts. Crossover frequency is 2.5 kHz. It measures 10.4 inches high by 6.3 inches wide by 10.4 inches deep, and it weighs 12.3 pounds. And next up is a 5090 CI center channel. This one is a ported box. This compact center features two 4.5-inch mid-bass drivers and the same 1-inch tweeter. The frequency response is 57 Hz to 30 kHz. Nominal impedance is 6 ohms with a minimum of 3.2. Sensitivity is 90.5 decibels. Recommended amplifier power is 25 to 150 watts. Crossover frequency is 2.1 kHz. This measures 6.5 inches high by 16.9 inches wide by 9.6 inches deep, and it weighs 18.7 pounds. And then, of course, is the SUB100. This one is a sealed box design or infinite baffle design. It's made from 18mm MDF with a 36mm front baffle. The driver is a paper cone with a rubber surround. The voice coil is 38mm with an aluminum demodulation ring. The front grille is a fixed 15mm MDF. It has DSP for system and room integration, dual phase and delay controls, a low-pass filter, and they make their own amplifier module that has 4 digital amplifier stages, and a 12-volt trigger input for automatic power up when a trigger signal is present. Max SPL at 1 meter is 111 decibels. Frequency response is 32 Hz to 250 Hz. Low-pass crossover range is 40 Hz to 250. Peak amplifier power is 500 watts with a continuous of 250. Total harmonic distortion is at 0.09%. It measures 13.7 by 13.7 by 15 inches, and it weighs 36.8 pounds. I've had the 5010s in-house for a while now, and I've used the crap out of them. I use them over there on my desk, behind me on my DJ shelf, in my bedroom, and of course in my living room, and that's where this entire review took place. I was curious about doing this because after doing the 5040 review, I just couldn't help notice that the center channel and these speakers have matching drivers. Matching drivers means cohesion, right? So why not give that a shot? The 5010 sat in my living room, 8 feet apart on either side of my media unit, about a foot away from the front wall. The 5090 sat on the media unit, sandwiched between the Marantz Cinema 70 and a bunch of different integrated amplifiers. EXA100 from Cambridge Audio, and also the Marantz Model 50. Now, technically, you don't need a separate integrated amplifier for which to power these puny little bookshelf speakers. The Marantz Cinema 70 should be enough on its own, but I do find that more amplification does scale up these speakers fairly well, and it's something I like doing in my small little listening room, and I found it worked for larger speakers, so if I have the integrated amplifiers on hand, might as well give it a shot, so that's what I did. I'm also using the SVS Ultra Evolution Nano bookshelves for my rears. They're not a perfect acoustic match, but it's just for rear surround effects, so it's neither here nor there for me. The SUB100 sits against my floor-to-ceiling windows on the left side of my room. And if you're keen to notice, there is a sound panel up against my window because it is a floor-to-ceiling windows. I'm on the second floor, so if you're walking on the street, you can look up my shorts. I just value a little bit of privacy there. And also it helps with the reverberation against the glass if there was to be any at all. My room's about 12 feet wide by 10 inches deep. It's open on the right side because that's where the kitchen is. Yay, small space living. Just take my small room into account if you are considering these speakers for yourself in your room. If your room is smaller or bigger than mine, your results may vary. When it comes to music, starting with these 5010s, my key takeaways are really that even though the speaker is rated to go to 30 kilohertz, it never once sounds shrill or bright in any way. They're also compact bookshelf speakers, but they don't sound like small speakers. No, they don't sound comparable to the much larger three-way Modern Audio Gold 100 speaker, but given its size, given the compact driver complement, they do sound bigger than what you would think just by looking at them. Scaling up the amp does yield better performance, so starting out with something like a Fosse audio amplifier on my desk, it can work, but move up to something like the EXA100 from Cambridge Audio. The speakers open up, there's more detail, there's more engagement. Stepping up your amplifier is a benefit. So if you did pick up these speakers and you had a lower powered amplifier, you'd enjoy your music. But if you do ever step up your amplifier, you'd get more out of these speakers. I feel like I just said that 6 times in a row, but that's a takeaway as well. They have a pretty good soundstage. In my room, it's not the largest. The speakers are sitting about 9 feet in front of me, and I do have them towed in towards my listening position a little bit. If I tow them out, they do feel a little bit more expansive, but they do have a fairly direct sound, and I feel like they need a bit more room to sound a little bit wider in my space. Pairing this speaker with a sub like the SUB100 is an easy recommendation for me. In fact, I think it's absolutely necessary. It just takes over where this speaker sort of dips out on that lower register. Again, it's no fault of the speaker. It's a small compact speaker, but a sub does help, especially for the stuff that I listen to. And lastly, the SUB100 is not a subterranean subwoofer. It dips out at about 32 hertz. So if you're looking for maximum depth from a compact enclosure, maybe you should look elsewhere. But for my room and for this type of speaker package, I feel like it does enough for music and movies for my own personal taste. What the SUB100 does come in handy is when I'm playing something like Manium from Vril. It's a fairly chilled out ambient techno track. I think that's a way to describe that. But anyway, it starts essentially from nothing, and all the tracks slowly build in volume and becomes more full and lively. And without the sub, it sounds nice, but it never really fully builds in. But I flip on that subwoofer, and then from the jump, there is a dull muted kick. And all of a sudden, the track has more body, there's more of a driving force behind it, and when it fully builds in, it really builds in, it becomes fully engaging, I'm a bit more immersed in the sound. I feel like that's what a subwoofer does for these speakers. As engaging, as detailed, and as clear as they are, a subwoofer is just absolutely necessary just to get the most out of it. I even listen to a lot of non-bass music, a lot of funk and soul, and there's just a lot more body to everything, a lot more weight, a lot more air and presence to everything when I do have a subwoofer engaged. And it's not like I'm boosting it to 11. It's just giving it enough juice just to help complement the speakers and the signal overall. And it works for me in my space. I ran Touch It from Busta Rhymes on these speakers. It's a track that I ran on the 5040s, and I wanted to see how it sounded on these as well. It's fairly stripped back. There's a giant bass line in it as well, and again, you do need a subwoofer to get any sort of impact out of the song, but a lot of the drums do have a lot of snap and they're fairly sharp, and on some speakers, I'm looking at you, Bowers & Wilkins 606 S3s, it becomes a little tiresome, and I wish to have tone controls just to turn down that treble, but on these speakers, it goes nice and high, it's nice and sharp, but it never really rings my ear at all, and I get all the definition and clarity and texture out of a electric snare or hi-hat, but it's never grating or anything to my ears, and that's greatly appreciated out of these speakers. But it's not all bass music though. There are other types of music I run through these speakers. My kids are into a lot of 80s music just by right of a lot of the animated movies they're watching these days, and so I decided to torture them with some 80s new wave music that I'm into as well. It's less sub-focused, of course, but I left it on to help with some of the presence and weight. The sound of these speakers is pretty awesome. I can pretty much play anything on them, and nothing sounds bad through them. Just like Heaven from The Cure sounds full and rich without any noticeable flaws top to bottom. I know it's kind of vague, but it's not a speaker that will expose the recording for its flaws. Whatever they did with that mid-bass driver is a pretty neat trick. When I think of better cohesion with the highs, I automatically think, oh, that's just less bass. But that's not the case here. Yes, there is great cohesion, but even in that lower register, the lower mid-bass region, there's a lot of body there. In Every Breath You Take, every breath that he makes, has a lot of body to it. His voice is nice and full. There's lots of weight on all the lower notes. It works fairly well without a subwoofer. But again, you flip on the SUB100, there's just more body, more presence to that song overall, so I do deem that a really good pairing. But if you're trying not to implement a subwoofer, and you listen to 80s new wave or just that song over and over again, 5010 works on its own in a fairly small room. For movies, I think this little speaker package is pretty amazing, though there are a couple of caveats just off the bat. For the 5090 itself, I do find that when I have it set up, I do have to dial back the center channel volume by about 4 to 5 decibels. It's just too prominent in my space, and it does kind of take away from that front stage just by being so dominant. Also, it sits about 9 feet in front of me, and so I don't feel like I'm far enough from the speaker for it to sound as expansive or envelop me in sound as much. It's a lot more focused on my listening position, as are the 5010s. I feel like if you have a slightly larger room, you'd experience a wider sound than I'm experiencing with these little speakers. The SVS surrounds help it feel a little more expansive overall though. This focused and directed sound does have its benefit though, like when I'm watching the wormhole scene from Interstellar. When they fly into the wormhole, my sub starts shaking, the surround field is turned all the way up, things are flying around. When they start talking, I can clearly hear everything that they're saying, and that's not always the case on some surround packages. Sometimes I have to turn up the center channel just to make out what they're saying. Not so much here. That's a good thing. The sub, while not digging super low, does a good job of giving me enough depth to shake my room, and without doing any measurements at all, I feel like it does enough here. And then switching over to my current favorite movie of this year, Killer of Killers, the new Predator animated movie. I've watched this way more times than I'd like to admit, and my favorite act is Bullet. When the prop planes are battling the alien craft and engines are roaring, guns are firing, people are dying, things are blowing up, I was fully immersed and engaged in the sound. It sounded like a mid-sized system to me. It was pretty awesome. Where I found the speaker to also shine is in more of a subdued movie, Moneyball. That movie is a movie I put on to get my kids to fall asleep. It's kind of like melatonin to them. It's like put it on, 20 minutes later, they're out cold. But I end up just watching the movie from start to finish almost every single time because it's dialogue heavy, but it's dialogue in different environments. And they did a good job of conveying what environment that they're in, whether they're in a car or an office or in a stadium. Every scene sounds different, and their dialogue is affected by the environment, of course. And you hear it a lot in that movie, and it's more subtle. You get these subtle, I guess, room effects, but then you also get really clear, crisp, audible dialogue with lots of character to it. It's a great movie on this package. I'm an unabashed fan and a bit biased towards Q Acoustics speakers. I love all of their products, and this little speaker package is kind of perfect, especially if you're like me and you watch movies and listen to music in the same space. This is a perfect package for that. I do feel like if you do have a bit more space, just a bit more distance between you and all of these speakers would be beneficial. I think they'd sound a bit more expansive. The subwoofer works for both music and movies. It does dig lower than I think just looking at the spec, but if you are looking for a bit more output overall, then there's another model out there that will most likely suit your fancy. But if you like things to all be matchy-match, it's a great sub pairing. Thanks for watching.